And we are live.
Woo! Hello world.
G'day.
Well, that's a full screen.
Yep, absolutely.
It is a full screen, and look at this fancy four at this early 4 a.m. in the morning, depending on where you are in the world.
5 a.m. Is it 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., Tracy?
Oh, that's right, 5 a.m.
You've been up too early.
Yeah, my alarm was 4. But it doesn't
awesome.
I totally feel like it's the supercharged part of the day. And just that magical energy from you three.
Welcome everybody. We are just about to begin. Welcome Peter from Melbourne. Welcome Jerry from Adelaide, Australia. Just between all of it, it's 11 a.m. here. And what about you, Peter?
It's 7 o'clock in the evening on, I have no idea what the day is. I think it might be Sunday. I don't know.
I totally get that. Yeah.
But it's 7 o'clock at night. Almost time for a glass of red.
And Jerry, about you?
Yeah, it's just 6:30 a.m. So that's still about an hour away from a glass of red. No, p.m. What am I talking about?
He normally drinks in the AM.
Get the times right.
Lovely. Shall we start? Because we have much to do this 60 minutes.
Indeed.
Let's go.
Let's go for it.
All right. Well, let's see. Because this is part 2 of Rise to the Challenge and Get Into the Game. So Peter's fantastic to be back. Maurice, fantastic to be back. And Tracy, thank you so much for being our special guest. Woot, woot. And again, it just proves what a machine you are to be setting your alarm at 4 o'clock and being here for us at 5 a.m. You look fantastic. You're amazing. Oh.
I woke up like this.
You woke up like this. This is me naturally.
Jerry, who are you? Tell the people from this part of the world who you are.
All right. So I'm Jerry Morris, the founder of 𝒃𝒐𝒐𝒌𝒆𝒄.com. I've been working with wonderful guest speakers for some 20 years now. I've had the good fortune of knowing my good friend Peter Thurin here for just about 20 years now. So it's quite the friendship. And he's always there when I need him. And even when I don't need him, he's always there.
That's a little bit honest, Jerry. That's a little bit honest.
It's not about being honest here.
We must be honest, do we?
Absolutely.
Look, it's the most wonderful friendship. It's and can I just say too, Maurice, that for me to see something really amazingly special in you, my friend Maurice, and Jerry from Holland to Adelaide, and you boys were so open to collaborating, and here we are, and now we're back on for the second time, and incredibly excited to have Tracy join us, and more about that in a moment. But really, it's such a privilege to have her online with us.
Yeah.
The privilege is all mine. Not too many ladies are welcome to start a day with 3 handsome, super energetic, take action superstars like all of you.
Talk it up.
Talk it up. That's right. They even got their hair cut, folks that are listening in. The first haircut webinar.
Yeah. You all did very well this morning, Tracy. 5 a.m. Unbelievable. And you directly said yes to join this webinar. Thank you so much.
In a second.
My name is Maurice van der Kant from Asmodee Speakers. I'm the founder of bookingworldspeakers.com. And we are all here together to have the same focus, to have the same mission, to have the same story. And we try to focus more in depth in this webinar to go deep with all the people here in this webinar, to go really deep, not only to what we should do, but how we make the first step. It's all about doing in this webinar. It's all about taking action.
Absolutely.
So, Jerry, go on.
Yeah, exactly. It is about taking action. There's a lot of positivity out there, but unless you take steps and take action, you're not moving forward. So what I'm a great believer in, Peter, I would like to ask you, your philosophy in life, is easy to do, easy not to do, your choice. Care to explain a little bit more for us, please?
Well, firstly, the amazing thing about easy to do, easy not to do is that it's what's brought us all together. It is my philosophy in life. I believe that everything is a choice between easy to do and easy not to do. Choosing easy to do means focusing on what you can do rather than on what you can't do. It's the first step to achieving anything in your life, but it's also the second step and the third step and I think you get the picture. And what I've learned in my journey all around the world is that the best in the world, the best individuals, the best organizations, franchises, associations, speaking bureaus, learn to find it easy to do the things that others find easy not to do. So the three pillars that I talk about, that we're going to talk about, today, tonight, and I'm really excited to bounce off Tracy with this, is to firstly have the courage to get into the game, whatever your game is. And by game, I mean this is whatever you decide to play, whatever you decide is important in your life. You get to choose the rules, what's negotiable and what's not negotiable. From getting into the game to rising to the challenge, there will always be times of adversity. And there'll be obstacles and barriers and roadblocks, and we have to rise to the challenge if ultimately we want to be remarkable. So Jerry, if okay, Maurice, if okay with you, what I'd love, and I've been dying to ask this question, and I met Tracy for the first time last Friday, and the two boys, Maurice and Jerry, were laughing at us because Tracy and I could have spoken for 5 days underwater without interruption. It was just an instant love fest and sharing of stories. So Trace, can I just be straight in your face, if that's okay? What was it about the philosophy of easy to do, easy not to do that attracted you? What is it about it that brings to life or comes to mind for you?
Well, we were talking about how motivation or inspiration is kind of like perfume or cologne, right? You put it on and they listen in with you and I and the four of us and get all excited. And then you go make a cup of tea or drink your red wine and it kind of, you've walked out of the room or you've jumped in the shower and it washes off. But when you say easy to do, easy not to do, is like I was supercharged because you were all about taking action. And sometimes people see me like, oh, you're so inspiring. And I was like, okay, that's great. You believe you can do it. But I figured out that what happened is that being inspired isn't enough. Like what makes the difference? What changed Tracy to unstoppable Tracy and what changed you to unstoppable you is that when you take action, right? It's not just believing you can do it. It's the take action. It's believe you can do it and then go do something about it. And I love that you say easy to do, to take action.
But Trace, I don't want anybody to confuse the message. Firstly, I just want to say one thing to everybody who's sharing this moment in time with us, that it's not about my stories, it's not about Tracy's stories or the boys. It's how you take the meaning from those stories and then have the courage to implement into your own life. That's the key. And it's so true what you say. It's moving from inspiration to application. It has and always will be about the doing, isn't it? And that's a choice. And please don't, as I say, don't misunderstand easy to do, easy not to do. I'm not saying to be a super fit athlete is easy to do, but getting in the game, 2 sit-ups and 2 push-ups is easy to do. It's easy not to do. I'm not saying to have a sensational relationship with someone who you've been struggling with is easy to do, but to send them a message saying, I love you and I'm thinking of you, that's easy to do. That's easy not to do. I think you understand.
Yeah, full on. I always aspired to be like a Paralympian, and I was dreaming about sailing and I would sail in my local Toronto and it was like easy to do, not to do. And then I'm like, I got to do the national level. And so like dragging a boat with no arms, no legs in a car to drive to Halifax, which was like a several day drive.
Yeah, wow.
My boat there. And like people were like, how are you going to fill your gas tank? Never mind tow a boat and double check all the tie downs. And I remember being at a gas station and jumping out of my car with my legs off and like bum shuffling back to get the gas tank. And I was in an SUV instead of in a car because I was towing a boat. And I'm like, oh, it's like over my head with my legs off now with this gas tank. And I didn't fill one tank alone. And it wasn't because I was sitting in my car batting my eyelashes. it was because easy to do. It was because I got in action. I got out of the car and I did my best to fill my gas tank. And then there was always some truck driver or biker that would see me and would come give me a hand with the gas. And I'm sure I could have figured it out on my own, but because I was in action, you know, you attract the inaction, like-minded. Okay, they're all in. I'm going to go all in with them.
Tracy, I love what you're saying, and I'm laughing and smiling because I really feel the joy. I'm laughing with you. I can actually see, and as we know, it's small steps taken consistently over time that leads to massive achievement. It's not one, you know, to get fit and healthy, it's not doing 1,000 push-ups on day one thinking, well, I'm done. It's that 2 turns into 3, turns into 5. And it's you with those small steps that you keep taking. And I know I've watched a number of your videos. I've been stalking you online, and just the whole attitude of the way you walk into a room and, hello, I'm Tracy, and leading from the front. And that takes courage. It can't always have been easy for you, has it?
No, I think a lot of people think it's easy, or they think that courage is without the fear, but it's totally like petrifying to be facing the bullies that are saying, well, oh, I don't think you can do that, or ignore her, she's weird, from the kids when you're little. But yeah, it's hearing those things. It's being underestimated as an adult, as a female at Air Canada during a pilot strike, or being a 4-way amputee when there's a big government reform stopping the way a business does their major profit, and now you're meant to be the one that faces these CEOs, but it's going in there anyway, afraid, and even with your stomach afraid, and saying, hi, let's get started.
Trace, can I tell you, and so now maybe you understand just a little bit why I was so excited. And I was bouncing off Jerry today. I drive him insane. We do have a 20-year friendship, and you can understand why I was so excited to be able to speak to you about having the courage to get into the game, rising to the challenge, because you've had plenty. And yes, we know that right now is a challenging time, but there'll be others. There will always be moments of adversity, and then ultimately to be remarkable coming out the other end. And you just bring it to life in spades. And I love you for it. And I love you for coming on and sharing this with us. But if I don't throw back to the boys now, I'm going to get smacked.
Uh-oh.
Jerry, shall we have a drink?
Yeah, exactly.
It's starting again. No, Peter, first of all, nobody said something about my haircut. What happened?
You are so handsome. You know that. You don't need to be told again.
Yes. It's slick.
What do you think? Does it look all right?
At least.
Well, I'll leave that to Tracy.
Yeah, well, I think you're looking very suave, and look at it all like slicked back. And I'm always tempted with this one finger to want to, with Gwen's approval, with his lovely wife's approval, to like run my finger through his hair. But today it is so handsome, I'd be afraid to mess it up.
Thank you. Let's go on.
And Marie, especially knowing that it's not your hair. So there we go.
Let's move to my question, what I have, and I think what a lot of people have. Life is not easy. Everyone knows that. Life is not easy. Even for Tracy, it's not. Even for Peter, it's not. Even for Jerry, it's not. Life is not easy. That's number one. But the reason why people have dreams, have thinking about something, but don't take action, is I don't have time. That's one of the top reasons I don't have time. Please share to people how you think of that, Peter. Let's start with Tracy. Let's start with Tracy.
Go for it, Trace.
It's true with you just don't have time. And then I found that I remember when I went skydiving, right? I have been abundant of places trying to go, and nobody would take me without my hands and without my legs. And I finally found this place where somebody would go skydiving with me. And I went once and I loved it. And I decided the very same day, I got to skydive again and do it again that same day. And people were talking about that. A lot of people say they love skydiving, but they just don't do it anymore, and they don't make the time. And the dive instructor, he said, when you love something, you make the time. And I remember being on an airplane. It was Hurricane Sandy. There was, it wiped out New York. It washed away homes in Rhode Island. And I was in the air at the time, kind of like your wife being a flight attendant. And I was in the air, and I thought that the plane was going to crash because there was so much turbulence from Hurricane Sandy. And I decided in that moment, if I live, I'm going to make the time to pursue my Paralympic dream. And,
Awesome.
There was a full-time job, and there was family, and there was nieces and nephews, and an engagement, and there was so much going on. But you do make the time when you decide to take action and go all in. So, I don't have time to make a webinar. I don't have time to write a book, or I don't have time to be an entrepreneur. I need to just do 9 to 5. And when you just decide easy to do or easy not to do, when you say it's easy to do, I'm going to take the action, you make time. And I ended up pursuing my Paralympic journey.
Oh,
Love it. That's awesome, Trace.
Thank you. Peter.
Look, I'll come up from two sides. One, time is to focus on what matters most to you. Because if everything's important, then nothing's important. But let's really give some thought and create some clarity around what matters most to you. What are your non-negotiables? So if health and fitness is not negotiable, give it the time it deserves. If family is on the list, and I hope it is, then get home for story time as opposed to 3 extra beers in the pub at night time. If community work is important, then make sure we put the time aside. Be really clear as to what matters most and keep your focus there. But for people that say to me, oh, look, I don't have half an hour a day to exercise. Well, I get that. I don't have a block of half an hour. But what about 3 lots of 10 minutes? And if 10 minutes is too long, then go with 4 lots of 7.5 minutes. And if 7.5 minutes is too long, find 6 lots of 5 minutes. And guess what? 6 lots of 5 minutes, 30 minutes a day is 210 minutes a week. That's 10,920 minutes of whatever you don't have time for in a year. That's 182 hours of stuff, whether reading or exercise. So break it down. I'll say it again. Small steps taken consistently over time leads to massive achievement. For those people that say they don't have time, break it down. Small steps, 2 sit-ups and 2 push-ups. And as you rightfully say, Trace, just tick the box. You've either done it or you haven't. There's a yes box and a no box. If it's important to you, you will bring it to life. Don't give me the I don't have time. If you've got nothing right now through this period, you've been given a gift of time. It's how you use that time. And actually to that, I had an incredible conversation with the CEO of a company last week who said to me, Pete, we will be he plays in the business and financial advisory arena. And he said, Pete, we will be judged on how we spend this time. Do you know that we have made more phone calls to clients in the last 8 to 9 weeks, these are his words, than we had made in the previous 4 years. Yeah. We make the time. We find the time for what matters most. If it's important, you'll do it. Is it woe is me? I'm all by myself. I'm in lockdown. When will we get out of this? Or is it what can I bring to life? But more importantly, what will I bring to life? You'll find the time.
So one other question. Do we have to focus first on yourself or first on others?
Look, for me, it's a no-brainer. Your wife will bring this to life for us, Maurice. On the airplanes, let's put the oxygen mask on you first. If you don't take care of you, you cannot take care of others. It's not selfish. It's taking care of yourself first so that you can look after the people who you love and who you care about in your life.
Thank you. I think Jerry has an amazing question for Tracy.
Yeah. This almost feels like it's a bit of a setup. But Tracy, I have this question for you.
I'm feeling set up here.
Yeah, well, because it's a setup. Because I tried to set up Maurice with it, but he's thrown it back to me. And it is funny. So just say I'm making sure I'm not throwing everybody under the bus. I'm not going alone, But it's funny. Peter mentioned going down to the pub. And we explained to Maurice, there's an Aussie saying about being legless. Right, and that's when you've had too much to drink, too much drink. Away you go. But from our conversation last week, I've never heard this before, but you had mentioned that you're without your legs. You took your legs to the shop and they haven't fixed them yet. And because of lockdown, you haven't got them back.
Yeah,
It's like taking your car to the shop and going, I've got to get this fixed by the mechanic going, I've never had, I haven't got my legs back. So how's that going for you?
It's so true. And you talk about being legless. I've like 20 countries in 2019 and traveled all over the world. And I love that being legless expression. We don't have it in Canada. I remember I was in the canals in Birmingham, and I was the barge captain. I would be on the front of the boat with a big long pole going through. But the best part of the day was we would get to where one of the guys on the boat was a little bit like you, Jerry, and he would just go, and he says, I smell a pub, right? And we would just be like all those trees, and you think like we're in the middle of nowhere. What do you mean you smell a pub? And sure enough, the barge would stop, and we would tie off on shore, and he's this big tall fella, 6 feet tall, and he would put me on his back, and he would piggyback me into like through the trees, and we'd get to like a pub at the top somehow miraculously in Birmingham, somewhere in the woods. And we would get in, and the bartender, almost every pub in Birmingham, we'd get to the bartender, and the bartender would see me on his back, and he'd be like, I can't serve you guys. And they'd be like, how come? And they'd be like, well, she's legless already.
That's the humor. It's like all these challenges that got on for you, but it's like, so can I ask, when are you getting your legs back?
Yeah, when are my? I know. Well, they said 2 more weeks. All around. Maurice can get his hair cut in the Netherlands, but in Toronto, you still can't get your hair cut. And my prosthetic legs are still low priority. They're not considered essential service at the moment. So
not essential.
But I like that. I think that's huge, actually. Your arms, your legs, your limits, they are non-essential. Your limits are non-essential service. Who you just need is your head and your heart. You just need your core to be able to be an essential service to take action.
I love that.
Very nice. Talk about haircuts, talk about well-being. You told me about a little story about the lipstick story, Peter. Can you share it with us?
Look, can I tell you, I have a thing, and I really do believe this. Everybody, and Jerry's heard me talk about this before, that everybody needs somebody to laugh with. When you take things so seriously sometimes, and then you share it with somebody else, and they just laugh at you and with you, and you start to laugh, and it just doesn't seem so serious. That everybody needs someone to laugh with was born when I was a young pharmacist. I was working 24/7. I was working every single day. I worked every single day for 4 years straight. So I can tell you the fuse is pretty short. You don't get any time off. And I finally brought in a 65-year-old pharmacist to help me on a Wednesday. And on this particular Wednesday, a customer of ours, an elderly lady, returned a Christian Dior lipstick, which she'd spent 3 hours buying on the Saturday morning. She returned it on the Wednesday without a box, and the lipstick was half gone. And she's telling me, I want to return it. It has never been used. I want to return it. I want my money back. And I'm standing there, and I could feel the veins on the side of my neck bulging as I'm listening to this lady talking to me, and I'm taking it so seriously. And I took the lipstick, and I walked into the dispensary, and there was a 65-year-old pharmacist. His name was Tom. He was lying in the fetal position on the floor in the dispensary, rolling around, laughing his head off. And I walked in and I said, what's so funny? And he said, I cannot believe it. This lady is so obviously lying to you, and you were taking it so seriously. And I burst into fits of laughter looking at this 65-year-old gentleman in the fetal position. And I realized that day that everybody needs somebody to laugh with. It's so, so, so important. But Trace, I know my stories. I'm much more excited to listen to your stories. And can I just say that you must have had, even the story that you're just talking about before, you have so many things that you have this beautiful preparedness, and I know how necessary it has been for you to laugh at yourself and to make other people feel comfortable. But when I say everybody needs somebody to laugh with, share a story.
Oh my goodness. I think one of my favorite stories is this whole people underestimating and wondering like whether you can do it or not. And I remember being 5 years old and the first day of school, and I'm face to face with the principal, and he looks at me without my hands, without my legs, and he tells my mom that I can't go to that school. And you know, in that moment, it didn't feel so funny. Like all the way there, we were laughing and having a really good laugh with all the kids and the neighbors and all of that. And I thought my mom was going to be all mama bear.
Yeah.
And she didn't. And all she did was she just said, how come? Right? She didn't say why, which puts people on defensive. She said, how come? And he said, oh, no arms, no legs, one teacher. She's not going to have time to help Tracy. And so she said, I totally understand. She said, can you give me 1 week? And if it doesn't work out, no problem. And he said, well, I can give you 1 week because you've been caught by surprise. And so my mom, she got down on her knees and she grabbed my arms kind of like either side of the screen here. And I could feel her fingerprints. Even now, as I'm telling you this story, it's like she's still holding my arms. And she looks me in the eye and she says, Tracy, it's really important that you and everybody's included. Nobody left behind, especially you. Well, I'm 5 years old, right? I don't know why mom was so serious. So I just sort of say, okay, mom, because I just want to go play. Well, the principal, he heard my mom. He saw my mom on her knees, holding my arms, looking me eye to eye, saying nobody left behind. So at recess time, he runs outside to see if I made it, because now his heart doesn't want to send me away on Friday, right? After seeing this tearful story with my mom. I never made it to the recess yard. So he's like, what am I going to tell her, Mom? So he runs inside to find the teacher so that he can explain to my mom, how come I can't stay on Friday? And he asked the teacher, what happened? He said, couldn't she tie her shoelaces? And the teacher was all confused. And she said, actually, Tracy was the first one to tie her shoelaces. So, how come she wasn't outside? I said, oh, well, none of the 30 kids could tie their shoelaces.
That's magnificent. Trace, can I just ask you something? One of the things that's really important to me and that I talk about is that you get to choose your response. People are listening to us tonight, and this is an experience or an event, and they get to choose how they respond to this, okay? And doing nothing is a response. But I've always talked about the power of the questions that we ask. You know, what do I need to do more? What do I need to do better? What do I need to do differently? But you talk about your mum just now. And I love my mum. My mum and my dad, you know, my dad's 90, my mum's 86, 87. And when you talk about your mum, there's a question on one of the videos that I watched that I love. There's a particular question that your mum asked of you when you were a little kiddie that you responded in a certain way, and your mum looked at you and said, Trace, how's that working for you? You know what the story I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
How's that working for you? So please, it was all about choosing a better response to serve you better, wasn't it?
It was. It's funny. You know, Mom asked, how come the principal? And it turned into listening to him. And then I remember, and she asked challenging questions all the time. I was sitting on a front lawn and I was crying, and she opened the door and she's like, what's wrong? And I said, well, the kids over there, I want them to come play over here. And I grew up in affordable housing, and we were on a bit of a steep hill, and there was a whole bunch of gravel around each of the houses. It wasn't paved. And the kids were on the grass on the other side of the gravel. And I wanted them to come play on my grassy patch because I couldn't get across the gravel. And when Mom opened the door and found me crying, she said, what's wrong? And I said, well, the kids over there, I want them to come play over here, but they're just saying mean things. And my mom said, how's that working for you? Just like you said. And then she shut the door. And you know, as a little kid, I was thinking, that's so mean. And then I realized my mom's not mean. And then I realized, oh, I get it. Right? I have every right to be crying. They're being mean, right? I have every right to be sad. and do nothing about it, or I have every right to be sad and do something about it.
Yeah.
And so I rolled down the lawn, and there was a skateboard on the street. I like to say I borrowed it. And remember, I have no legs, but I do have one long arm, missing both my hands, but one long arm. So I sat on the skateboard, and I used the one arm to skateboard over to their lawn, and I rolled up the lawn to face those kids and say, "Hi, I'm Tracy. Can I play?" But I needed that question. I needed that I needed that tough love, right?
So, Trace, I'd really love, people who are listening to us tonight to really be mindful of that. The power so often is in the questions that we ask. And we choose our response, that's one thing, and it'll lead to a certain outcome. But if we can give some thought as to the outcome that we would like, you wanted the kids to play with you, that was the outcome. So therefore the response had to push you in that direction. So how's that working for you? Well, if it's not bringing you the outcome that you wanted, you had to pick a better response. And it's no different for any of us. If we can give some thought as to the outcome that we want, we want to leave a wonderful world for our kids and for our grandchildren. Well, we've been talking about Michael Jackson, and if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make the change. It's starting with small steps, pushing you in the direction of the outcome that you say you want. And very clearly, I only need to watch what you're doing as opposed to what you're saying.
Peter,
it's all about the doing.
Can I connect with that? Of course, we wake up, we have our dreams, we look in the mirror. I don't do it that much in the mirror, only in the early morning. I have a neighbor, and he shared with me that he's going every 2 weeks to the hairdresser. So I don't do that. There was my first time after the lockdown. But we all are talking about happiness, about joy. Happiness is an emotional response to an outcome. Joy is not a choice. Joy is a feeling, doing something that you're passionate for. So we must put more joy into our lives. Can you help me with sharing a story about how can people put more joy into their lives, and start with looking in that mirror every morning?
When I started sailing, because I don't have my legs, every time I was in that boat as a little girl, every time there was a wave or a little bit of wind, I would fall out of the boat. And this is Lake Ontario, and there's a big ferry. It's very busy traffic. And, a lot of people around, a lot of the adults, and they started to be like, "Oh my gosh, this little girl, no arms, no legs, and pigtails, like falling out of the boat." And the one lady that's been my mentor my entire life, we've climbed the Himalayas together, we worked on tall ships together, and she was the 18-year-old that took this 8-year-old sailing for the very first time. She just turned to all of them and she just said, "Look at her. She's laughing," right? And I love swimming, right? She said, "I have a feeling she is purposely falling out of the boat," right? They figured it wasn't falling out of the boat. They figured I was probably jumping out of the boat. She's like, "She's wearing a life jacket. She can swim," right? And, what did I do when I fell out of the boat besides enjoy a little swim on a hot day? But you just climb back in that boat. And at the end of the summer, all of the other kids, they all got their white sail level 1. And I knew the parts of the boat and I knew the points of sail, but I failed at sailing. Because it turns out if you can't stay in the boat, you can't get your white sail level 1. And again, everybody was sort of asking her, like, "Well, is it really fair? She has to be here, and everybody's getting their white sail level 1." And she said, "Well, why do you ask her?" Right? And said, "Do you want to come back next summer?" And I was like, "Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it." Right? And I went back the next summer, and I learned how to stay in the boat, right? I learned how to balance in the boat. And because I was so wobbly, I learned to get my head out of the boat and look ahead and see where the windy water was and know when to brace myself and how to harness that wind. Well, the second summer, I got my 𝐸𝒔𝒂𝒂 level 1. I caught up like all the kids. I got my 𝐸𝒂𝒂𝒂 level 2. But unlike all the kids, because I learned to balance in the boat, it was an advanced study skill. I got my bronze level 4 and my 𝐸𝒂𝒂𝒂 level 3. So, I got to learn that I was just doing my advanced study backwards. I got my 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Like that's it. So if you have joy, if you just enjoy it and you're struggling along the way, you're just doing your advanced study backwards. You'll just sleep into it.
So that's the best combination of have and laugh and keep on learning.
Yeah.
No, that's so powerful. And I'm just going to add a little bit to that. Such a beautiful story. I love the stories, Trace. For me, and I say to the guys, when we first came together, I said, what I want them to do what gives them their greatest joy, because that's what I want. If you said to me, Pete, can you manufacture light globes? Look, I possibly could, but it's not going to give me any joy. And it takes a lot more energy to do what you don't enjoy doing than what gives you joy. And if nothing else, during this lockdown period, it's really reinforced for me when I look at what gives me my greatest joy. And that's interacting with people. Even owning and operating, I owned and operated retail pharmacies in Melbourne, Australia for 20 years. And for me, it was about genuinely taking care of people. It started with my team of people who then impacted on our customers, suppliers, and my team of people that impacted on customers. But that's what gave me joy. It was always about people. So I know the space that I need to play in to give me my greatest joy. And that's what I want for each of you guys. Us coming together is that you each get the opportunity to do what gives you your greatest joy, because that way we become an unstoppable force. And there's something about that I find very cool.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I can
Jerry,
see.
Maybe we can share some of the questions in the chat. I think Shelly has shared with us some questions about, okay, what if other people don't like it, what you're doing? All people suffer. How do other people look at you? I think it's a great question. Am I right, Shelly? Please let me know. Is that the questions that you want to be answered?
Trace, maybe that's a question for you first and foremost. If that's the meaning from Shelley's question, what if people don't like what you're doing? Because my answer may be a little bit different to your answer, but I'd love to hear yours first, if that's okay.
Well, absolutely. And Shelley, thank you for asking. When I think about that, like the kindergarten story, when people don't like what you're doing, or think about when the principal is saying no, N-O, or when people, underestimate you because you're small, or you're a woman, or you're black, or you're white, or you have an MBA, or you don't have an MBA, or you're young, or you're older, or you're lesbian, bi, gay, trans, queer, plus, like whatever it is, right? So in this particular story, with the principal, N-O, I got to learn at 5 years old that just meant K-N-O-W. That principal just didn't know. So when I hear no, I just hear K-N-O-W. When I faced gold Olympian Magnus Liddahl, great big strong Viking man, and I drove down there 5 days, and for 3 months I slept in my car every day, waking up at 5:30 a.m. to wash his boats with him, because the first day he said, I train able-bodied, already medaling men in sailing, right? It's not a woman thing. It's not a disability thing. It's just, I'm not his target audience. So when people say no, or they don't like what you're doing, they just don't K-N-O-W. They just don't know. And so how can you speak to their listening? Right? Magnus needed his boats washed. I didn't say, I can do it. My mom didn't tell the principal, she can tie her shoelaces. She said, if it doesn't work out, no problem. Can we just try? Right? I saw Magnus needed his boats washed. So I didn't say, I can do it. I said, no problem. Can I give you a hand with your boat? And so it was 3 months of washing boats. I was kind of like Karate Kid, washing and waxing boats for 3 months. But no, N-O just means K-N-O-W. Just means they don't know. So speak to their listening until you turn it around.
That's
everybody is surrounded by negative people.
Yeah, Maurice, my response to that is that I'm a husband, father, grandfather, so I've lived a little bit of life. And if we are always waiting to be judged by other people, we won't do anything. He's too tall, he's too short, he's too enthusiastic, he's too this, he's too that, he's not this, he's not that. And so I go back to what I said before. Be really clear as to what matters most to you and stay focused there. Be a good person. I mean, I'm not saying do anything harmful or unethical, but if you're a good person and you give everything that you've got, then you can look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of what you see. I think that we've got to be really cautious about listening to everybody else's opinion of you.
Oh, yeah. And if I could just add to that, you'll always have somebody who doesn't like what you're doing. Like, I can't understand why anyone would not like you, Tracy, or not like you, Peter, or not like Maurice. But like, I'm going to a quick story of a presenter that I know, and I love her. And she's also a voiceover expert. So she's done lots of animation. She's been the voice of Blinky Bill. There's a quality character down here. And when she gets on stage, she uses all these voices and delivers great messages, and everybody loves her. And we actually had one person complain and was like, all right, well, how's this complaint? He goes, I thought she was showing off by doing their voices. You're just, there will be people out there, be it haters or negative people, and you just got to stick to your own true path.
Jerry, I think you make a really strong point. And, I make two promises before I go on stage, whether it's a virtual stage or whether it's real life stage. And that is, one, I will never, ever let you down through lack of preparation. Do the homework. I control it. The two things you control 100% are your attitude and your effort. And then when I go on stage, I'll give you everything I've got. And I can't give you more than that. I can't do more than that. And that's the promise I make. We'll never let you down through lack of preparation, and we'll give everything that I've got on stage. And then I think, then we need to move on. You're right. There are people that will sit in judgment. Trace, I can share a story with you that yesterday, on Sunday, I was walking and I mentor another lady, and she made a comment to me very early on in the conversation that she thought, it's fantastic, to your point about, different genders and other things that are going on in this world. And she said, it's so nice to see a woman on this call. And I stopped her immediately. I said, I want you to understand something. Tracy is not a part of this because she's a woman. Tracy is a part of this because she is amazing. She's an amazing human being. And what she brings to the stage for us is something that we don't bring to the stage. I didn't stop to think that she's male or female, tall or short. And I said to you on Friday, so I'm not making this up, I didn't see the other stuff. All I saw and felt was you, and it was coming from the heart. And that together, I just felt so much stronger leaving the call than when I arrived on the call. That's what's important. That's what matters to me. And I know I know that Maurice, in my first conversation with him, we spoke a lot about that, about genuinely caring about human beings and human beings being good. We never spoke male, female, tall, short, colours, or we just spoke about just wonderful human beings, human being.
So we all must be good for others. Let's take it out. Whatever you are, whoever you be, where in the world you are, we in a couple of minutes, I see in the chat Shane is also joining us. I would also love to have him asking you a question and let them share his short story. Do you know Shane?
I've had the great joy, really through you. I actually spent time on a Zoom call with Shane, so I'm a little bit excited. And I've just, for the first time, I never ever look at the chat, and I've just looked down and I'm seeing a couple of names of different people there. Glenn and Brad, two guys there that I've had the great joy of conferencing with a long time ago, have stayed connected to me for some reason for so many years. And I love the fact that those two boys are on the call. So I hope they're embarrassed that I'm talking about them, that they are just beautiful boys. I hope you can feel the hug, guys.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Shane, I have.
and please feel free. Please feel free to share your questions in the chat. But Shane, can you click on the speak button in your screen? Let's try it if it works. And keep on going. I let them come in, and please use the time to share and spread some stories. There he is.
As he's coming on, Maurice, I just want to say, though, that to your point about do I know Shane, again, that's about, I knew he was connected to you. And so he reached out to me. We got onto a Zoom call and chatted. So what we actually did was put ourselves in danger of learning something new, by sharing stories. It was just, and that came about through his relationship with your good self. So it's easy to do. It's easy not to do. It's taking, it's just taking that opportunity and bringing it to life.
Yeah.
If Shane comes in, we'll stop right away. But when I was with is Shane here?
No, not yet.
When I was with Air Canada and Canadian Airlines, Canadian Airlines had been through a lot of mergers with Ward Air, with Pan Pacifica, and I think it was PSA, like all these different airlines. So when they went through mergers, they were sort of like, okay, we've been through this before. What do we need to do, right? And they were starting to ask questions to get to the decision-making of going from forming to getting through the storming to getting through the performing. Whereas Air Canada had been 30 years and taken care of, and it was brand new for them to go through such a significant change and merger. And what I know is that every time you go through something different, something new, it's a bonus. And so you were saying how great it is when you make a difference for others. And as a kid, I just wanted to play in the playground for recess. But I got to learn that magic of how great it felt to be a valuable contributor. It felt so amazing to be able to tie all those shoes. And all I wanted to do is play at recess. So that meant getting everybody outside so that they could play too. And I didn't plan on being a shoelace leader. But all of you joining us this morning, all of you are shoelace leaders. The four of us here and all of you in the chat, you are all shoelace leaders. You are all different.
And Trace, that's the courage to get into whatever the game is. That was the game you needed and wanted to play in. And it does take a little bit of courage. It's no different for you or for me or for Jerry or for Maurice. Sometimes taking that first step, but the feeling once you're in the game, once you've taken that, we just walk differently, don't we? I had a dream as an 8-year-old boy to achieve a black belt in martial arts. I didn't start till I was 36. Yeah. And it was a simple phone call that changed my life. I'd waited from 8 to 36 to make the phone call. I felt awkward. I felt uncomfortable. So I didn't get into the game. It changed my life. A simple phone call. Easy to do, easy not to do. I'm not saying to get a black belt is easy to do, but the phone call. It was the phone call that's such a simple thing to do.
Yes.
To do.
And
I'm sure we've got Shane.
Yeah. We've got Shane?
No.
And it was a phone call too with Magnus, right? I was on that airplane, the plane landed, I was in the parking lot, and I thought, so if I live, what do I want to do? What gives me joy no matter what? And it wasn't working 5 years at a pharmacy, by the way, which is so funny that we're both in the pharmacy retail world. In Britain, it's called Boots. In the States, it's called Walgreens, and in Canada, it's called Shoppers Drug Mart. And I was 5 years in that world. So in
Australia, it's just called Churns.
Churns. See, there we go.
I just made that up.
It's funny. I'm just going to bring the loop back a bit here, because just as you said, Tracy, and Peter, taking a phone call, making a phone call, for you guys, and we're talking about taking action. What's your non-negotiables? Peter, do you want to go first?
Mate, so many different contexts around non-negotiables. For me, it's going back to what matters most to you. Real clarity. My non-negotiable for me, the game I play in is I'm up at 5:30, 5:45 every morning, and I'm out exercising. It is not negotiable. And if I've got, if I've got a massive day, I'll get up an hour early. If it has to be 4 o'clock, it has to be 4 o'clock. Not negotiable. My family, my wife, my kids, my grandchildren, that come first. They are not negotiable. The time I spend. My littlest grandson sleeping tomorrow night. There's nothing. I'm not available. If you need me tomorrow night, I'm not available. I don't have to justify why I'm not available. He comes first. So my health, my family, the work I do in the community. I have certain projects that are really important to me. I've always had a passion for kids. So there's a certain amount of work that goes there. My non-negotiables, it's interesting because I learned a wonderful lesson from a global president of a company. If you think you're busy, this man is incredibly busy. He used to sit down at the beginning of every year with his EA, open the diary and put in his non-negotiables. His non-negotiables were parent-teacher day, school sports day, 6 bonus weekends with his wife. That meant Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 6 of them went into the diary. If somebody wanted him, he wasn't available. It was not negotiable. But not negotiable means not negotiable. So again, absolute clarity around what matters most to you and stay focused on that. Not negotiable.
Awesome. And yourself, Tracy?
I live a life of being all decisions, laughter, love, and magic. So if that decision doesn't leave me in a space of laughter, love, or magic, then it's a decision I don't take.
Awesome.
That's a gorgeous philosophy.
And I'm sure Trace as well. Please, I am still very much a work in progress. I catch myself, I'm laughing, I'm petrified Jerry's going to ask me a question that I don't want. And I know it's got something to do with my book. And because you've been in my face about it. And I've been putting it off and putting it off. I've been choosing easy not to do. And I'm now collaborating or have collaborated with a gentleman called Brett Rutledge from SenseMap, who's the guy I've been working with on my rebranding and repositioning, and the A to Z of easy to do, because I've been asked over and over again, Pete, where's the easy to do book? Where's the easy to do book? And I've chosen easy not to do. Well, now the writing's done and we're at design stage. So Jerry, I hope you're proud of me. The A to Z of easy to do, next call, it'll be done.
All right, so okay. Well, the thing you've taken away my tricky question for you. I'll throw another one at you then.
Whoa.
You keep telling us about, I'm going to have this 5-minute presentation that can be used on any virtual online meeting. So how's that going, Peter?
Mate, that's thank you. Actually, thank you for asking me that. I want to share. Can I share? I'm going to share one quote with you first, because one of my favourite people who's not alive anymore, a gentleman by the name of Randy Pausch, who famously delivered the last lecture. And there's a book called The Last Lecture, if you haven't seen it. And the quote is quite simply this, and it's in my new book. You know, there are always barriers, obstacles and barriers and roadblocks. He says the brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. And, you know, there will always be obstacles and barriers, but how badly you want it, and you will work accordingly. Mate, read the 5 minutes. You know, in this changing world, we each have to think and act differently. You know, look in the mirror, you know, start with me. If I want to make a change, I've got to look at myself first. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing 5 minutes of easy to do, easy not to do to the world. Every online meeting gets access to 5 minutes of easy to do, easy not to do, tailored exactly towards their needs or the needs of the meeting. Online, anywhere in the world. A little bit of online inspiration to set the scene and get the meeting off on the right foot. And really and truly, doesn't the world need a little bit of inspiration right now? So as people are getting to know us, and if they're not too sure whether to make the decision and go what we used to call the big keynotes, let's start with 5 minutes of easy to do, easy not to do to set the scene and grow from there. No, mate, it's alive and happening. So thank you. I really do appreciate you asking me that question.
Well, as your agent, I want the book done and I want this 5 minutes done. All right, 20-year friendship's over.
No, mate, it's alive and happening. And I had a really interesting one the other day, and I'm happy to share it with you. I had somebody I was speaking about 5 minutes of online, easy to do, easy not to do. And they said, but Pete, we've got 12 meetings coming up. Do you think that you could deliver 5 minutes before each of those meetings? So before I even knew what was going on, I had 12 lots of 5 minutes sitting at my desk. And it's all about thinking and acting differently. And maybe our offer needs to be, start with small steps, easy to do, easy not to do. It's alive, mate. Thank you. I hope that it makes sense.
Shane had some problems with his microphone, so I will ask him to maybe you can introduce a bit of Shane, Peter.
Well, can I tell you,
what happened with him?
Can I tell you, Shane, it's so funny because I actually keep a notebook of people who I have Zoom calls with, and I wrote down two things. This will be interesting to Trace as well because it's really to what we talk about. Firstly, I genuinely enjoy talking to him. I don't want to give him a fat head, but I know you can hear me, and I wanted to ask you how your 2-year-old little girl is because I wanted to ask you that question. But the two things that he spoke to me about, he says that success is a state of mind. And the other thing I scribbled down when I was speaking to Shane was that adversity is a part of life. Well, we know that's the truth. It will always, this is a moment in time right now, but there will always be other times of adversity. And they were my two big takeaways from Shane. Success is a state of mind. Adversity is a part of life. So, mate, we're speaking the same language, but I still want to know how his 2-year-old little girl is.
It's her birthday today. So,
well, we want the photos.
Yeah, just in short for people who don't know Shane. And funny enough, I was introduced by somebody in Vancouver to Shane in Brisbane. And keep it short, Peter. Tell me what happened in his life.
Look, long story short, he had an accident, but the way he rebounded, it was quite debilitating. And he was in wheelchairs and wasn't supposed to walk. And then he went all around Africa. The guy's a doer. I mean, there's no question about that. But look, let's save Shane because we'll bring Shane on and we'll have him properly so he can do real justice to the story.
It's not possible. His microphone is not working, so we cannot have him live.
That's okay, but in another time we will have him live, for another webinar, so he can do the story justice. Because what I really want to make sure is that, tonight having Tracy on for me, Maurice, our discussions all those months ago, and my wonderful friend Jerry, and now my wonderful friend Maurice, and now to share with Tracy, I just want people to really understand the philosophy that everything in life is a choice between easy to do and easy not to do. And choosing easy to do is all about focusing on what you can do, Not enough pointing fingers at this person is or isn't. It doesn't. Look at me first. Take responsibility. Get into the game. Feel good about yourself. The amazing thing about taking an action step is that the more you do, the more confident you become. The more confident you are, the more you do. It's a cycle. Do become more confident, And Trace, you've just one day we'll get face to face and you'll get the hug properly because the whole notion around getting in the game, rising to the challenge and being remarkable, there is no greater example of that than my friend Tracy Schmidt. And thank you from here.
Jerry?
All of us. And it's funny because one of the questions I had was, people say now these are really challenging times. They've always been challenging times. And Tracy, you would have faced so many challenges head on with that wonderful heart and attitude. And on you go. You're a pure inspiration. And I was chatting to Peter today about that. And he was at an event and it was like, was it the oldest gentleman in the room? Like he was just going, these challenging times.
Yeah, look, he came to me. He ran a franchise supermarket, grocery, in a country area in Australia. And he was 70. He was the oldest person in the conference room. Yeah, there were people even older than me inside conference rooms. And he approached me because he was wanting to sell that business. That was his financial security for his family. But the big players, the big brands were moving into his town, taking in his final year of business. So his business would have been worth nothing. He approached me and asked, would you be prepared to work with me for the next 12 months? And all we did was focus on what he could do. The old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. He started to invest in his people. He cleaned his store. He started, training his people. We focused on 3 key things. 1, how he greeted people when they came in. 2, how he looked after them in his store. And 3, how he thanked them for doing business. That following 12 months with all the competition in town were the best ever 12 months in his business life. And the total focus was on what you could do, not on what you couldn't do. It's got nothing to do with age, height, color, gender. It's all small steps. Small steps consistently over time leads to massive achievement.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, guys.
Before we have 1 minute to go, but I would love to share what Shane Quinnell is now telling in the chat. Thank you for the great messages, guys and women, of course. In your experience, what is the most powerful mental habit to refine who you see in the mirror?
Ooh.
Tracy.
You know, it's I have a mirror bit actually, and I remember. So I was telling you how I was 3 months sleeping in my car, sleeping and hiding in Magnus's boatyard. I hid my car behind this big $1 million yacht. He didn't know I was there. And every day I would talk in the mirror and say, today's the day that Magnus is going to coach me. Right. And every day I'd wash his boats and buy his lunch and run around, but he never ever coached me. And so on the 90th day, after, 3 months of eating Cheerios and sleeping in my car, waking up at 5:30 in the morning, it was really hard to face that mirror and believe it, because I wouldn't get out of the car until I believed that was going to be the day that Magnus would coach me for real sailing. And so that morning I couldn't get out of the car because I never believed it. So I finally said in the mirror, I said, okay, what I can believe is today I'm going to be the best version of myself today. And I could only focus on me, and I couldn't focus on anything else or empower anybody else. I could just focus on me. And so in the mirror, I would say, and it took me like 12 times before I really shifted and believed it, but I wouldn't get out of my car every day until I said it in the mirror. And that day I said, today is going to be the best version of my day. And that day I didn't focus on Magnus, and I ended up helping people on the dock with their boats and, fixing things for others and just making a difference that way. And when I was able to focus on people around me on the docks, Magnus saw me demonstrating competency in sailing. And that was the day that he said, come on, let's go sailing. And that's sort of my mirror talk. You do need to give yourself oxygen first, and you do need to make a difference with others, right? I got to explore that we are all shoelace leaders, and it was way more fun making a difference than it was just playing on the schoolyard.
Yeah, and I just want to make the comment that once again, please, it's not about our stories, but everybody, how you take the meaning from those stories and have the courage to implement in your own life. And Shane, I'm going to continue this discussion with you on our next Zoom call, my friend. But when I talk about powerful mental habits, for me, I come back down to the doing. And I know one of the things that Shane and I have spoken about as well is about around motivation and action. For me, it's about taking those small steps. And that's the habit of taking those. It's having the discipline to keep taking them. The more steps I take, the more actions, the more I'm motivated to take more action steps. It's always about the doing, and I have that choice. Start small, have the courage to get into that game, but the discipline to keep going. Keep taking those small steps, because that ultimately, taking them consistently, would lead to massive achievement in whatever you say you want to achieve in your life. Always about the doing.
Excellent.
Right. The feeling, of course, to end this webinar. What I experienced, especially in this lockdown, because you have more time, what you feel is just do it directly. Just do it. Maybe don't think. Don't trust your fear. Just get rid of the fear. Just what you feel, do it, and then you experience a new life for you. That's what my experience is. My last question. Maybe Jerry would love to end this. My last question: what does success mean for you, Peter?
Well, the short answer for me really is twofold. One, I'm using Tracy's words now, being the best version of me. It's not how good I am, but how good I should be with the ability that I've got. So I really want to bring that to life. And the other part to success for me is that, I want to bring joy into other people's lives as well. Really, I don't know why this movie has never come into my headspace before, but my daughter, when she was overseas, she came back with a movie called The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. And I remember two questions that I think Morgan Freeman asked of Jack Nicholson. One, have you found joy in your life And the second question was, has your life brought joy for others?
Yeah.
So for me, I love the questions. Have you found joy in your life? Has your life brought joy for others? I haven't really answered your success question, but it's not a simple answer given that we're finishing. But for me, it's about being the best version of myself, but two, bringing the best out in others, people who I love and people who I care about.
That's beautiful. Tracy?
Oh, for me, it's always propelling forward. What is success propelling others forward, right? I spent a lot of life being unstoppable Tracy. You know, can you go to school? No. Can you sail? No. Can you ski? No. Can you bust Uber into Canada? And people think no. And it was unstoppable Tracy. But success, true, authentic joy for me was when I realized it's not about thinking why people underestimate me with no arms and no legs. It was when I realized the unstoppable you. It was when I saw that by sailing and skiing and busting up pilot strikes and busting Uber into Canada turned other people into deciding not to be suicidal, or other people to say, I finally wrote the book. I always had an excuse not to write. And so unstoppable you, the invitation to unstoppable you is and will be the success for me. Exceed uncertainty. I don't know what's going on in your lives out there, but I do know that when you live a life of no limits, you live a life, when you live a life of no excuses, you live a life of no limits. When you live a life of no excuses, you live a life of no limits.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much. Jerry, would you?
No, I actually can't have a question after that answer. I just want to just say, like, what's happened here this afternoon, morning, and evening. But it's what's coming from all three of you is that it's about taking action. You know, the doing. But the big one that I'm sort of taking from it is bringing joy. That's obviously super important, and it has come through in this last hour of like taking action, looking after others, but bringing joy. You know, that's what you guys do, which we're so thankful for. So it's been a beautiful hour, and
thank you, everybody.
Just superb.
Yeah, just focus on what you can do, everybody. Focus on what you can do.
Yeah.
And you earn independence not alone. It's who you surround yourself with. I am so blessed to be surrounded with you three gentlemen, and even more so, the abundance of people online, like the Shanes, like the Victorias, like the Bradleys, all of you listening in with us today is who you surround
thank you, guys.
with, how you earn independence.
So again, to summarize this inspirational webinar, it's look more in the mirror, commit to yourself, to your values. You know, you feel everything of it. Just do something with your feeling. That's one. Bring the joy in your life. And there's only one thing I would like to tell you. Don't do it alone. Gather, surround you with the people you love. They can help you. Ask questions. Thank you so much.
Well done.
Jerry, we will meet next week. We have a very special one next week. Maybe you can you will end this webinar. I'll talk about next week, next Tuesday. But first of all, Thursday, our next webinar, again, 8 p.m. Amsterdam time. We are going to talk with 𝒃𝒐𝒐𝒌𝒆𝒄𝒃. 𝒃𝒐𝒐𝒌𝒆𝒄, the thought leader. He just published his new book, After Never Eat Alone, and Who's Got Your Back. He published now after 5 years research, Leading Without Authority. What a better connection is this with the week of doing. It's not that you lead your own, but you need people around you to bring and collaborate and co-elevate. So hope you will. We will see you all of it in 8 p.m. Amsterdam time. You are sleeping, I guess, in Melbourne, Adelaide. Do we?
Yeah, early morning.
Just join and watch the replay because it will be amazing.
Thank you, Maurice.
Jerry, what do we have next week on Tuesday?
We have two amazing people joining us next week. Yeah, and again, it's through connections. Again, just as we've done today, you know, I introduced a good friend of mine, Simon Doble, to Maurice, and Simon is doing amazing things in making the world a better place and helping us get rid of energy poverty, which is something that I didn't know about, and he brought it to our attention. And as soon as I got him introduced to Maurice thought of his great friend, Irish, who thought, well, these two have got to work together, and we're bringing them together next week. And I think these two gentlemen are changing the world and just watch this space, because we're in for a treat for them next week, just like the treat we were in for tonight. You know, it just continues. The series of Power Webinars just keeps getting more powerful.
In short, they have a mission to bring more light into the children into billion children around the world.
Incredible.
Be there, please be there. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Enjoy. Thank you, everybody. Good. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining.
Take care.
Take care.
Oh, you're amazing.
Are we off air?
No, but watch Maurice. Maurice has still got us. We're going out to the world. Take my shirt off.
This will go into the bloopers. Oh, they're still there.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Nice. Thank you, Trace.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thank you.
Beautiful spending an hour with
Just
you.
the beginning. Just the beginning. Maurice, thank you. Jerry, sleep well, mate.
All right. Good night, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.